What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? The Steelers Global Perspective. Guys, dudes, what I know. Shannon, I know we're blokes. back on after you've had a lovely vacation week by the sounds of things. Great to have you back. Always miss talking Steelers with you, but I hope you had a good vacation. Obviously, it's toward the end of the American summer, but there's still a couple of weeks to go, right?
Oh yeah, we had a great vacation, and it seems strange not getting to talk to my buddy Matty down in the down under there. So I'm glad to be back and missed getting to talk to you last week, but we have a lot to talk about this week.
That's it. Well, I mean, everyone's just been on this Aiyuk train, which I'm getting tired of. I'm at this point, I articulated all the reasons why it doesn't make sense. Do I think Aiyuk's a great player? I do think he's a great player. I thought he was a great player coming out of college. I was glad he went in the first round. I thought if he didn't go in the first, he'd be disrespected. Took a little while to produce, had a bit of an injury cloud, had a bit of adjustment situations. But I see all the reasons. There's so many reasons. And you and I feel like we've been talking about this. I was doing the calculation anyway the other day. Steelers community, I'll just say, between media and platforms like this and social media, and probably people in the bars and mowing their lawns, talking to their neighbor. Everyone's been talking about this going back to March, February, when the whole free agency period started, because he was going through his fifth-year option. And I'm just kind of at the point where I'm like, do it or don't do it, but just can we give it a rest? And it's just, I think for me over the last 48 hours watching the Patriots are all in, they're not, and then the Browns are all in, and I still think the Browns, it makes more sense with Cooper, but then it's apparently his preference to go to the Steelers. I'm just kind of make it happen, don't make it happen. If you make it happen, you're probably in QB purgatory for the next 3 or 4 years to come at least. But I don't know. I thought we just covered off quickly, because other than that, I'm kind of done with the whole conversation. But any thoughts on where we're at in this Aiyuk saga? I mean,
I'm beyond tired of the endless speculation and the rumor mill and people trying to get quick hits and go viral by saying it's a done deal and this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and nobody knows anything. They act like everybody's got a source, and the source is, my cousin's aunt's barber knows this person in the 49ers organization. And I mean, it's ridiculous. The Steelers are never involved in a situation like this. They are always so close to the vest, and they hardly ever do anything like this anyway. And the fact that it took on a life of its own, like it has just been, and I've heard people, if this happens, they're going to win the Super Bowl. One thing about it, if the Steelers are truly contemplating this move, because they're going to have to pay him, I heard maybe $28 million.
At a minimum, minimum, because Waddle's on 28 point. It's either 2 or 4, might even be 3, but he's on. I know it's under 28.5, but it's more than 28. And they're saying that Aiyuk's I'm not taking less than Waddle.
Yeah. Well, one rumor was that he wanted to come to Pittsburgh so bad that he turned down a good bit more. He didn't want to go to the Patriots.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to go to the Browns, who both was willing to pay him more. So, but let's say it's $28 million. For me, if the Steelers are considering doing this, because we've already talked about what I think it will do to George Pickens and his development.
Yeah.
But, somebody said, well, they can pay both of them. Well, what are you going to do about a quarterback?
They actually can't pay both of them.
Yeah, and what are you going to do about a quarterback? And because you already got T.J. Watt, Fitzpatrick, and Cam Hayward wants paid. So here's where you got to look at. If they do it, they must think they're much closer to contending than most of us believe they are.
It's a good take.
And they must be very sold on either Wilson or Fields.
Or I'll add Arthur Smith. I'll add Arthur Smith to the mix too.
And that they can get Fields to say sign for $35 million. We discussed it on another podcast. If you can get him to sign for, say, 35 because he wants the stability, he wants to play with Mike Tomlin, there's different variables there. Wants to play with that organization. Then I can see where they might be a possibility that you can keep your core together. But there has to be more to this, because it's just, there's no way they can increase their payroll to the wide receiver position that much, and they still don't even have a franchise quarterback. So there must be more. Khan is rolling the dice. If this happens, he's rolling the dice. He believes in Wilson or Fields and this offensive line, and he is putting his stamp on it, and he's all in. It's all or nothing.
Yeah.
It's either going to work or it's going to flame out horribly. So I'm just sitting back watching the insanity of the comments that you see, and people are just losing their mind. And I actually like the makeup of the wide receiver room. I like the makeup of the offense as is. And I would rather have the franchise quarterback and then worry about trying to acquire and I'd like to see what George Pickens can turn into and his development in this Arthur Smith's offense. He could have a monster year. So, I've said that all along, but this is just a rumor that won't go away.
Yeah, it's I completely agree with all your statements there, and I worry about what it will do to the rest of the team affordability wise. I will say this though, and people can say that like I'm being unrealistic because of the money quarterbacks are getting, but paying Justin Fields $35 million at this point makes me want to like transparently throw up in my mouth, because I don't think he's worth $35 million based on what I've seen. And people like that's a comment that people will like comment and say that's ridiculous. This is what he's passed for. He's a dual threat. This is what this quarterback got paid. This is what that one got paid. Fine, but I don't think he's as good as Jordan Love. I'm just going to say that straight out. I don't think he's as good a passer as Jordan Love until I see more on the field, until I see it consistent, until I see it against like in absolute game-winning moments with a franchise that expects absolute excellence. And I haven't seen that. And that's maybe just Matty's opinion, but that's what it is. I'm not going to lie to people about that.
The Jordan Fields comment. Not Jordan Fields. Jordan Love comment. I've got my dog. He just decided to make a special appearance. And every time he does, he throws me off really bad. But no, Jordan Love is the better quarterback. He's the more proven quarterback. The problem is I will not judge Fields on what he was because of the quality of the organization he was with, his surrounding cast, everything. I believe that this is a new opportunity for him to rebuild himself, his game, live up to his potential. I will only judge him by what I see him do in a Steelers uniform.
Yep.
And to get a guy with that level of potential that has some proven production in the NFL usually costs you an early first-round pick. Fine. So it was definitely worth the gamble. But again, It goes back to the comment about Aiyuk and are they going to make this trade? This is still all unproven. It's speculation based on potential. So I believe when I said $35 million, I'm saying that if the Steelers are seeing something and they're seeing true growth thus far in camp, they're gambling. Like the Bears drafted Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
To be their new savior. Guess what? It's a huge gamble.
And I don't think it's going to pay off. Jaden Daniels is the better player.
If you're watching Hard Knocks, that guy is not an alpha. He doesn't have an alpha demeanor. He doesn't have an alpha body language. He is coming in to a situation where they're terrible at developing quarterbacks. Never had a 4,000-yard passer. And they rolled the dice. The year before, Carolina Panthers drafted Bryce Young. And I'm bigger than him. What I'm saying is it's always a gamble.
Yeah.
And I think that Khan made the right, prudent decision to sign Wilson for what he got him for, hoping to catch lightning in a bottle, by trading for Justin Fields because of that massive potential and athleticism. But again, as you say, it's nothing proven. Jordan Love proved last year that he's one of the top young quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yep.
And so when I threw the 35 out there, that's a discussion. It's either you gamble and you sign him before he proves it, or you wait and let him play out the season and see if he can prove it.
Yeah, and it's a topic I don't remember whether we talked about it or I talked about it on my own. I talked about it with Mark, but I talked about this after they got Fields. It was a couple of weeks after they got Fields, and I remember, and I stick to what I said at the time. And this is why I say 35 million. I struggle to think that Fields is at this point, and what to come, and the injuries could happen. But at this point, assuming that both gentlemen are healthy, I don't think Fields starts more than 6 games. If both are healthy through the regular season, I think they're going to go with Wilson. That's what I see right now. And so, with that being the case, let's say he plays in 8 games, and let's say it's 40 million, not let's say it's 40 million, not 35 million. That's $5 million a game that we're judging him on, right? And that to me, we're worried about all paying Cam 20 something million, right? Which is a whole nother topic. But then we're going to pay like a quarterback that's proven themselves over 8 games, like 40. And I know that's the going rate. I'm just saying, like, at that point, it's like, well, you know what? Then we're probably better off, doing the crazy thing and like spending a heap of picks, maybe not this year, but signing Wilson to a 2-year deal. And then in 2020, the 2026 draft, we're trying to draft like Arch Manning or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, I kind of, and this is why I worry about the Aiyuk part, because I feel like if they don't figure this out and they get Aiyuk, that they're going to be forced into a Kenny Pickett-like situation again.
I totally agree. The thing that we got to remember that between Bradshaw and Ben, we had nearly 3 decades of mediocrity. And we look now, like we talked about Young, we talked about Williams this year. We could talk about so many guys that, just did not pan out. How many franchise quarterbacks are there actually in the NFL? And there's not many.
No.
Not by my definition. There's some better than others, but you get a lot of mediocrity in there. The guys that I question that can they ever win a Super Bowl?
Yep.
And there's guys that's won MVP in the NFL in the last few years that I don't think will ever win a Super Bowl. I think that they're a very dangerous weapon, and they can be used in a lot of ways. But when they go up against the top teams in the high-pressure moments, that's when their warts show.
Yep.
That's where their limitations show. So the Steelers are gambling regardless. You're gambling, they took Kenny Pickett. They reached. It didn't work. Now they've signed a veteran quarterback who has won a Super Bowl, but he's older. They've traded for a guy who has massive talent and potential, but he's unproven. But one thing I will say that they're doing that they didn't do between Bradshaw and Ben is they're trying.
Well, that's it. That's 100%. You can't blame them. Like, at least they're trying. Like, and they're doing. It's what I say about the Pickett and the Trubisky thing. They got the number one, but the best free agent available. Just turns out it wasn't a very good free agent class, and they got the best.
That's true.
They got the best quarterback available in the draft. Again, turns out that wasn't a very good draft class. This year, they got the best veteran available in Russell Wilson, and they got the best young player available with the most amount of talent that was pretty much better than, like, probably I would say 5 of the 6 definitely quarterbacks that were taken in the first round. So you can't fault them for trying. It's just a really hard thing to digest. And the problem is
going to probably take a while. Did you hear me?
No, you cut out for a sec there.
Oh, it's probably going to take a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're hoping that, you know, that they can accelerate this thing and get lucky and, you know, and they've made some wise investments, but it's going to take a little bit of good fortune.
I still wish they made the move to get Jordan Love in 2021 when that was at the time where the hype was into Rodgers wanting to stay there and people questioning why they had Love and he hadn't really proven anything. And I remember I said at the time on a show, I said, this is the time you go get Jordan Love and let him sit behind Ben for a year. I love his arm. He's disenfranchised from Green Bay. They'll probably take a third for him.
But don't you think that the same thing was said about Jimmy Garoppolo? That, you know, if they get Jimmy Garoppolo, you know, the Niners did, and it got him to the Super Bowl, but he couldn't win it. If they would have got Jordan Love back then, I agree with you, but it was still, people would be like, well, that's a gamble. He ain't proven anything.
True.
To me, it's the same thing with Fields. It's a gamble.
The only difference is that Jordan Love had 2 years still on his deal, whereas we've got Fields and had to decide on a 5th-year option.
Yeah, that was just more of a timing thing.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. Definitely. Yeah, it would have been great in hindsight to have picked up Love.
Get it? In hindsight.
Yeah.
It was still Heinz Field then. So.
That's right.
It was quite funny, actually, up on the Heinz Field. I was talking to my wife the other day about something, and she elbows me and says, what's the Steelers home field called? And I'm like, Acrisure Stadium. And she's like, it's Heinz Field. And I was like, well, I mean, it's Acrisure Stadium now. And she's like, it's still Heinz Field to me. And I was like, all right, okay, like a layoff. Like, you know.
I tell Jess that I agree with her. It's just so hard for me to call it Acrisure.
But with that, we will wrap it up. As always, go Steelers.